organisations and for HR people is that line between banter and sexual harassment?
Hi, I'm Alex. I'm an associate solicitor at Clark & Son, specialising in employment law.
Hi, I'm Natasha Parkin. I'm HR manager at Clark & Son. And today we're going to be talking to Alex about banter in the workplace, in particular in relation to the new sexual harassment legislation, which is coming in on the 26th of October. The law is changing because we're talking specifically about sexual banter in the workplace, aren't we?
Yeah, because I suppose the difficulty is when you have teams within your organisation that have that banter relationship, and then potentially new recruits come in or new starters come in and they don't necessarily change their behaviour.
No.
In relation to banter, I think it's still key to ensure that policies and everything is in place as a kind of signposting, but with the kind of new obligations to take reasonable steps, and there actually be a proactive attempt to kind of stop the sort of sexual harassment that the legislation is attacking. It's about training is a key thing, and it may be that if there is a real culture of banter in the workplace, that you have specific training on banter in the workplace, because while something could be banter between two people, a third person may not consider it to be banter. And the way in which the law on harassment works is you don't have to be party to a conversation in order to be potentially harassed. Training's key, because it's kind of explaining to people that, you know, banter's fine when you've got two colleagues that do get along really well, and people have different lines that potentially are crossed or not crossed. So one person might think what you're saying is absolutely hilarious, and somebody else might feel really uncomfortable.
But equally that can change, can't it?
Yes.
Because one day I might think that what you use is really funny, and the next day you might offend me, and that can still be sexual harassment.
Exactly. So you could have a relationship with someone where you have that kind of banter style relationship, but even that second person that you have banter with, you could take something too far, and that person that you've got that banter relation with could then consider what you're saying is no longer banter, with the kind of, you know, conversations taking place in trainings circumstances, or ensuring your management and the organisation itself knows how to have the conversations, and saying to people, you know, we're not kind of the fun police, we're not trying to stop people from having fun at work. I mean, ultimately, work takes up an awful amount of time in our lives, so you don't want to go to work and just be like, I can't say anything for the fear of being kind of judged or whatever. But at the same time, you need to be really cautious that you can say something, it can go too far. Somebody that would usually consider something a joke may not consider that a joke, and if they turn around then and say, I don't think that's funny, you then know, you know, what their boundaries are, and they may then just think, you know, informally that's enough. But if you then go too far, they may then think, you know, I need to take this down the formal route. So then you need to ensure that your management, line managers, etc., know how to deal with that situation. And, you know, the age-old, oh, it was just a joke, doesn't really wash with harassment, because it's not how you think you're delivering it, it's how the person receives it, right? So I think training is massively key. As always, you know, policies, having those in place for people to read, but people may not always, you know, read it chapter and verse and fully understand it. So as an organisation, with the new obligations, in order to know you are taking those reasonable steps, you need to feel confident as, you know, the owners of that business, as the managers in that business, that, you know, we've made it really clear to all of our staff what we expect, what's right, what's wrong. And, you know, if people are saying, well, I don't really know what's, you know, the conduct that's allowed or not, then potentially your training and everything is not working. Because ultimately you can't strap people's mouths up and stop people from talking, but you need to feel as an employer that you have an organisation where everyone fully understands what's expected of them and what's not. Because some people might, you know, as we've said, some people might think something's a joke and some people might not. So it's quite difficult. I mean, people obviously, you would hope, would know the kind of severe levels of sexual harassment and know, you know, sexual harassment isn't just about touching people inappropriately or being kind of really overtly sexual, it can be a really nuanced area. Someone could just make a joke and with a punchline that, you know, they think is fairly harmless, but somebody else could be really offended by it.
Yeah.
So
I think the other thing that I'm concerned about from a HR perspective is going into party season, so then we throw alcohol into that mix. And again, you don't want to be the party police, but it's often HR that then have to deal with the outcome of that the next day. So presumably your advice would be to make sure that you're doing this training as soon as possible before party season.
Absolutely, and it's not just the, you know, the new laws coming in, so let's do everything now and then forget about it. It's key to kind of do everything now, make sure you're ready for this change, but then you're ensuring that you're kind of following it throughout the year. And, you know, it's quite close to this year's Christmas, but even next year's Christmas, you need to make sure you're carrying out those risk assessments and you're reminding people of the sort of conduct that's acceptable. And ultimately, you know, managers, business owners, they're going to have to be ensuring that when they're at these Christmas parties, they are not drinking to the excess that maybe other people are, because they've got to ensure that this behaviour isn't happening. And, you know, oh, everyone was drunk, it's not an excuse. And it's a huge risk when you throw in alcohol. It's a huge risk because people forget they're in a work environment still. I mean, you know, Christmas party is an extension of the workplace. So it's just, it's ensuring that you remind everyone of the conduct that's acceptable at Christmas parties, so no one is confused if they do something wrong and, you know, first day back they get called into HR's office and being told about their conduct. But it's also ensuring that not everyone is completely intoxicated at these places, because you still need to ensure that the conduct's not happening. And again, that's a training thing of making sure your management feel confident to have those really difficult conversations, even if it's in those sorts of environment. Now, it may not be appropriate to like shout at somebody across the room, but you know, pulling someone to one side, even at the event. I mean, if this person is completely intoxicated, it's probably not appropriate to have that conversation there and then. But that you need to have.
But you could remove them from that situation.
Exactly.
I think it's giving them the confidence to call it. Individuals the confidence to call it out, but managers to call it out as well. Yeah. And then also for individuals to know, how do I report this if I do want to take it further, or if it is serious enough that we do need to report it? Yeah, so signposting is a key one as well. I mean, we've obviously done it in the sense of it would be really good to have some kind of named contacts and call them maybe, you know, the sexual harassment contacts or something, so people know that there's specific people that they can go to with these sorts of allegations. And I mean, we see it a lot with sexual harassment. There's kind of the power imbalance. So, you know, employees themselves may not feel comfortable to call it out to the person that's doing the behaviour, because they may be in a higher position than them, they may fear for their job, etc., etc. So it is creating an environment within your organisation, having those named contacts, having, you know, policies in place, having training in place, and just making it clear that this is an environment where harassment and more specifically sexual harassment won't be tolerated. And, you know, act on it, be consistent with the way you're acting on it. As you say, give your managers confidence so they can call it out. And then hopefully off the back of that, there will then be an environment where more people will feel comfortable to call it out. Confident,
But yeah.
Thank you, Alex. That's very helpful.
That's all right.